The future is green. And yes, green does mean sustainable, but we're talking about the green, known as cannabis, hemp, ganja, weed, and a plethora of other names if you want to keep it small. But the world of cannabis is much bigger than smoke and mirrors. I'm Kendall, the farm plug.
I'm Antoine Mordican.
And I'm Dr. Snap.
And
This
this
is
is
Growing
Growing
the
the
Green.
Green. Welcome, everybody. My name is Antoine Mordican, the Alabama State Director for Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and I'm here to cover the news for you today. The news today may be a little lengthy because we got a lot to cover, and everything will be related locally here to Alabama with what's going on with the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission and how we moving forward with rolling out licenses, awarding licenses, and issuing licenses. So last week of last week, the Alabama Cannabis Commission, they came together to meet to pretty much present some new rules and make some amendments to existing rules to be able to possibly move the program forward. If you're not familiar with what's been going on here in Alabama right now, the Alabama Cannabis Commission is under a restraining order from Judge Anderson, and they also issued their own stay on themselves to prevent them from being able to move forward until they figure out a fair and equitable way to be able to move forward, as well as addressing a lot of the litigation that they are currently dealing with. So one of the rules that they end up presenting is a emergency. It's called a special procedure related emergency special procedure related to certain applicants. So with this rule, the commission is attempting to be able to make those that were denied and those that are currently having license and those that are currently in litigation a more fair way to be able to get heard and potentially be awarded a license. So within this rule, it's going to create a timeline between 60 to 70 days for them to award a license. So once I met with the commission last week and I spoke with a few of the commissioners, their goal is to be able to re-award a license this upcoming December. I don't know how feasible that really is because the work that they're going to have to do to be able to get up to that point is crazy. But they also have another rule that's a non-emergency that'll pretty much make it 120 days if they need additional time. But the new rule addresses a lot of things. So one of the issues that applicants had with being with applying for a license, it was a file size restriction on when submitting your application. So when submitting your application, you had to submit multiple exhibits, and each exhibit could not exceed 10 megabytes. And a lot of folks have to either compress they file, or they have to remove some of the material to be able to submit their application. And a lot of applicants feel that pretty much compromised the application to be able to be graded poorly due to not being able to include everything. So one of the options that the commission is now allowing for those applicants to be able to pretty much submit a letter and be able to say that they wasn't able to be able to fully provide everything, and give them the option to be able to provide those necessary documents so that they can be able to so they can actually be able to be fairly considered for license. Another option is what they're doing is redaction. So if you participate in the public hearing process for the applications and you went to look at some of the applications, some of them were heavily redacted and some of them was not redacted as much. So the commission is now making sure that those applicants only redact specific information such as like trade secrets, sensitive information, and not the entire application. With some folks you just couldn't see, so that it can be more transparent, that the public can be able to see who these companies are, who these owners are, what is the breakdown, and how they plan on coming to Alabama to ultimately serve the patients of Alabama. Another
Hold on, before you keep going, that's kind of big, right? Like that's not small at all, because that transparency piece is like, I know that Alabama, my understanding is with the commission, they did a lot to be sure that it was small businesses and Alabama owned businesses in particular. But a lot of that redacted information, if you know how to follow what they're saying, you can see that, oh, they look like a mom and pop in Alabama, but they're actually coming from California, or they're actually a MSO, a multi-state operator from like Colorado or something, that's pretending to look like they're from here, based on different partners that they brought on. And that's some of the information that they could easily just redact. So that transparency piece is pretty huge.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it should make it a little bit more fair and understanding as we continue to move forward. Like some applicants, like you couldn't see nothing on the application. It was blacked out from page 1 to page 1,800 or something like that. So they'll be allowing for those redactions to be resubmitted and to be in compliance with what the commission is expecting for them to do. The third concern and issue that they'll be addressing is certain companies that had passed or failed items on a application, such as myself, that had a residency deficiency issue. They're allowing for those companies to be able to submit a letter to the commission to pretty much argue why their application should not be rejected due to this pass or fail item, which I think is really great because it allows for the commission to be able to hear from the companies, which they should have been doing that from the jump, which one of the commissions actually did present a motion to be able to do so, but the former chairman shot it down, which he's no longer there. So now they kind of rolling out with this now. So they'll allow for certain companies to be able to argue why they pass or fail was not really a pass or fail or a deficiency to be able to move forward. And the time, like I said, is very, very, very small. Like a lot of this stuff to be able to make these changes, like a 10-day window. As well, the fourth thing the commission will be doing, they'll be releasing the criteria and the evaluator notes from the evaluators that graded the application. So the applicants can be able to understand where they end up coming up short, how the evaluators deem the application as a deficiencies or deem whatever their grade was to be what the grade is. Then another thing as well, which I think is really, really, really big, the commission will allow each applicant the opportunity to be able to present in front of the commission in a public hearing. The commission will be able to ask them questions. I'm not 100% sure if the public that was there in the room will be able to ask questions as well, but it'll give each applicant, they'll give the cultivators, it'll give the vertically integrated companies 45 minutes to present and all the other companies 20 minutes to present and pretty much argue why they should be awarded a license and why they feel like they are the best company. And I think that's going to really set apart a lot of folks, especially those that may not be Alabama owned. And with myself as speaking as an individual, being in these rooms, you're not seeing many people that look like me. You're not seeing, it's a few business owners, like actual Alabama business owners in there. But other than that, it's just lobbyists and attorneys. So it's going to be curious on who's going to actually be presenting for these other companies and these entities to be able to argue their point, to say that they're here to represent Alabama. They want to do right by the patients of Alabama. They want Alabama to win. So I'm actually looking forward to that because, we'll be able to get that information out to the commission. Then they're able to have you're able to have a direct, pretty much an interview with the commission and be able to explain why you should be awarded a license as well. What's your purpose and your meaning behind everything. And that's pretty much everything for the new rule that they presented. And they made some changes to some of the existing rules, such as the pass or fails, the timeline for everything. But also in news, actually yesterday, Judge Anderson has ruled on a lot of the litigation that's been going on, and Judge Anderson did something real unique. He's allowing the commission to be able to move forward and able to allow the awarded licenses that they call non-converted licenses, and those would be like state lab testing, secure transportation, and cultivators. They're allowing for them to be able to move forward while everything else is kind of figured out. And we should learn more about that next week. I believe October 26th. The commission will be meeting again. We should learn a lot more about that on kind of which direction they're going to go in for that. And with that being said, those that are in Alabama, especially in Montgomery, Alabama, pull up to the State House October 26th at 2:00 p.m. just to be in the room, to be able to hear this information firsthand. Let your energy as an Alabama citizen, a potential patient, be heard and felt, so that you can be involved in this process and making sure that let the commission know everybody's paying attention. We want to make sure that this program is as solid as it can possibly be. But with that being said, that's all I have here for the news here in Alabama. Looking forward to everything that's coming forward, and I'll be sure to provide you all with a phenomenal update on the news next week.
Ashe. Wow. It's really, it felt like it was dragging for a really long time, but it seems like once they press play on it, it's moving at light speed. And the fact that to be sure I heard you correctly, right, I want to break this down in like simple terms. You basically just said that no matter what happens next week, that they're going to, or no matter what happens over the next couple of weeks, right, the next few meetings, that they're going to let the labs, the cultivators, they're making that announcement. So y'all are going to know whether or not you got it within the next, what, 2 weeks, basically? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yeah, we should. And then, I'm curious on which way the commission is going to go with this, because they can go ahead and issue all the cultivation license and not have any problem in the cultivation section, because it's only 12 licenses that they can give out and only 12 applicants applied, and they can allow for those applicants to be able to, if they choose to become operational, if they end up falling off, they just end up falling off and not becoming operational. So it's a lot of stuff that can be done in the meantime of that, but it also minimizes the amount of work that they're going to have to do, because they're going to have to hear from everybody else in every other section, such as dispensary. You got processing that's very competitive, but the vertically integrated, that's the one that everybody is in uproar about. So the commission is going to have their work cut out in the next couple of weeks next couple of months. And as I've been telling them, good luck, because it's going to be some work they got to get done.
Yeah, and so I mean, it is also kind of one of the smartest moves that they've made lately, right? To split it in half, because of how much, like, if they tried to do everything at once, it would have kept getting reset, kept getting reset, kept getting reset. But for the industry areas where, like you said, it's 12 opportunities and it's 12 people that applied. Like, let these people come in, let them pitch, which is even more amazing. Now you got to have a face to the paper, to the name. Like, it's kind of a culminating event in a way, which is really dope. We're gonna have to like get a flyer made or something so we can post it to the social media and share it out with people so that they know, even beyond just this radio show. Like, we want people to really understand, like, if you haven't been involved in this process, this is the most transparent that this process has been over the last, what, 2-3 years, right? And so to be able to finally hear from the horse's mouth about what they want to do, what their plans are, and why we should be supporting them, that's pretty intense. I like that. You got any thoughts, Dr. Snapper?
Not right now. Not right now. I mean, y'all got it.
Ashe. So we can go ahead and smooth our way right up into this conversation. So in today's episode, we're going to be having a conversation about the present, right? Looking at processing and vertical integration, right? Antoine, you mentioned vertical integration as one of the areas where they're giving out licenses. So we'll unpack that a little bit more, what it means and why it matters. And then we're also going to have a conversation about various growth mediums, right? Which is like, we looking at two who I consider to be some of the most future-oriented farmers. I think this is going to be a pretty exciting conversation, building off of the last dialogue that we had. Our last episode was looking at the past, right, where we focused on the different policies, like really giving us a good understanding of how we got to this situation with this plant today, the way that we have to engage with it, right? Like, this whole process in Alabama has been difficult because of the policies and stuff like that, and all of that we discussed last week or the week before. Then we actually had the opportunity to go out to Alabama A&M, so we want to give a big shout out to Antoine's alma mater. We see you, whatever y'all beat us, we don't care. We made our homecoming popular, but I digress.
I give you,
Say it again.
I give you that we had a great time.
Shay, it was a good time. And so we also want to give a big shout out to Dr. Siebert, who's up there running that experimental station. And like, I mean, for what it's worth, he's running it smoothly. They're doing some awesome work, even outside of just, hemp and cannabis. That miscanthus, right, as a biofuel, we got to learn a lot about some of the different plants that he's growing and how we can really be able to harness them for the future, right? But before we start talking about the future, right, let's dive into today. And I guess where do you guys want to start? Should we start with just processing in general? You want to start with vertical? I think maybe we should unpack vertical integration, because we already talked about what it was. What do y'all think?
Yeah, we could touch on vertically integrated, and then we go into processing, because processing is also included in the vertically integrated licenses and things like that. So I guess I can go ahead and kick it off. So vertically integrated, how I view it, you own the entire supply chain from seed to sale, from seed to the customer. So, for example, if you're a vertically integrated license holder, you own the first step of the supply chain, which is cultivation. You'll be able to cultivate and grow your product, whatever crop it is that you're choosing to grow, whatever strain it is that you're growing, and then you'll step into the next part of it, which is processing. You'll also own the processing, which you can use whatever source method of extraction If it's just simply trimming, or if it's cold pressing, or if you're using ethanol or CO2, however you choose to be able to make your end product to be able to end up with your oil. Then you get down into secure transportation. Everything has to move around. So vertically integrated, you have to own like armor trucks and things like that, so you can be able to securely transport the medical cannabis or whatever it is that you're using throughout the state. And then you step into dispensary, which is the retail. You're able to pretty much set up your shop, put whatever products, your own products and other people's products in your dispensaries, and then you're able to sell to the patients, those that are in need of the medicine. And that's pretty much the vertically integrated license. But you're unable to have like lab testing, which nobody should be testing. Well, you should be testing it, but your test should not be the final say so of what your product is, because anybody can juice that up. Their product can really be like 20% THC, and they out here lying saying it's 35% THC. Or they could test and say, well, we don't have any mold or no heavy metals in our crops. Whole time they do have those kind of heavy metals and mold in their crops. So that's going to have to be a third party to be able to do that.
Okay.
Definitely for like quality control. So, Dr. Snapper, how would you define vertical integration?
One-stop shop, right? One-stop shop, right? So from everything from putting it in the ground to taking it out the door. That's how I would explain vertical integration. I mean, it's when you're doing pretty much everything yourself, you're trying to find a way to go through every step of the process. You breaking down the plant from the seed, from planting the seed, sowing the seed, cultivating the seed, planting the crop. I mean, planting it, harvesting it, processing it, distributing it. You know what I'm saying? All that straight to the consumer. So that would be vertical integration.
Okay, so this is like one of my favorite elements, like, and really like unpacking this conversation is part of where like, the farm plug was birthed, and like understanding that every single thing on earth has a process and comes from a natural resource, right? So, like our phrase that agriculture is not a part of cannabis, cannabis is a part of agriculture. And so every single industry has a supply chain, right? Like that's when we look at, COVID in 2020, where the shock to the system, a lot of that came from things being shut down in China and like fertilizer in Russia, which are all inputs, right, that are super important for that first step in vertical integration. And really in any economy across the board, unless you're, I would say, more in a digital space, but you couldn't even access digital spaces without hardware, right? And that hardware is made from, minerals and steel and diamonds and all of these lithium batteries and stuff that still at the end of the day come from natural resources, right? So it's really like an awesome opportunity for people to have a glimpse into what every single industry has to go through. And I think you guys did a really good job of like summing it up from seed to sale, right? From seed to the door, whatever it is that you plan on getting out, to control the means of production of that process. If you control the means of production of any process from beginning to end, right? And when we talk about sustainable economies, even the process of waste and recycling and renewal and being able to use things again, to control that is even another element to vertical integration, right? Like owning and even labor, right? Which is kind of what we're seeing in places like Detroit with people going on strike and stuff like that. Like a strike is basically people coming together to say that we control our labor as an input to the vertical integration process, because at every step of that process, if you're not using robots the entire way, there's a person there, and even if you got robots, there's someone pushing the button, right? So us as labor, right, all of that comes together to create the vertical integration process. So when we talk about something like cannabis import, stop it, my dog is in here going and stuff. When we talk about things like vertical integration, the very first step is inputs, right? It's the cultivation, it's the growth, right? So when it comes down to cannabis, there are a lot of different ways, just like any other agriculture crop, really. There are multiple ways that you could grow it, right? So, and I really, you guys is like some super innovators when it comes down to growth mediums. So what are some of the mediums, the various mediums of growth for the first step for cultivation that come to mind?
Well, you know, our traditional grow medium, the good old dirt, the good old soil, you know, one of the most common ones that we tend to use. And then just depending on your experience with it, we also have hydroponics, which is one of, I guess you could say I kind of specialize in that. And hydroponic, you know, you can either do deep water cultivation where you grow directly in the water, where your roots sit in the water and you have like air stone provide oxygen and everything to the roots. You're able to add the nutrients directly to the water so that the plant can be able to uptake that. With hydroponic, you can also use rock wool, which is pretty much just spin rock until it finds and you're able to make a cube out of it. Which that one's actually pretty good as well to be able to use and allow good oxygen flow. It provides a good housing for the roots. And what else we got? We got cocoa coir, which is one of my favorites. Is cocoa coir. Cocoa coir and perlite is one of my favorites because it mimics the closest to soil. Of course, once you mix it all up, it looks like soil. But just the reference that it gives you, the blank reference that it gives you, the nutrients that you choose to add to that hydroponic setup, the rockwool and cocoa coir, you're able to manipulate in such a way that if you recognize any deficiencies in your plants, or you want to be able to make sure that it grows a little bigger, or you want to switch up certain things, but it gives you a more baseline to be able to pretty much play around with everything of the plant to be able to see how it will react versus you know, with traditional with soil, it depends on the condition of your soil, the minerals that's already in your soil, and kind of how you want to turn it out that way. Another grow medium is aquaponics, which is still
hold on, Antoine. I want to let Snapper kind of unpack that one a little bit. Because even especially when it comes down to the work that you do, Dr. Snapper, at the urban ag site in downtown Montgomery, right? That people should know about, and events are upcoming. So stay tuned.
Grady Street.
Fireplace.
Yes, 595
Grady Street. So that's in Montgomery, downtown Montgomery, right up the street. So when considering different methods of growing, so he mentioned aquaponics. So in aquaponics, you can have you know, grow media such as expanded clay pellets or hydroton. That's like clay pellets that have been pressurized to the point where they are not breaking apart. They're kind of like a solid material. They got little holes in it that has areas for the for the conversion of the nitrogen cycle from the nitrates to the nitrites. So you got the expanded clay pellets so most of the time the expanded clay pellets are used in your ebb and flow type systems. That's when it flood and drain. And then you have another method called nutrient film technique. That's when you send water down a pipe or down a tube or some type of cylindrical or some type of gutter system. You send the water down the pipe, and the roots automatically dangle in the water or in the pipe, and there's no actual grow media, but the roots are, you know, catching that water as it passed by. You do anchor the plant in a little whatever you choose, cocoa peat or expanded clay pellets, just around the base of the plant, but the roots are actually dangling in the water. So you got the expanded clay pellets, you got the nutrient film technique, you got your ebb and flow, and he also mentioned the deep water culture, and that's when you have like a good aeration at the bottom that aerate those roots. It's kind of floating on water. Yeah, so and aquaponics within itself is growing things in fish water, or you using fish to grow nutrient. I mean, you're using fish as your nutrient solution, right? So this nutrient solution is converted from the ammonia that the fish produce in their waste, and it's converted through the nitrogen cycle to be taken up by the plant roots for nutrients. So you can't put a lot of chemicals. You can't put a lot of things. So if you put chemicals in it for the fish, normally that'll pretty much hurt your plants. If you put chemicals in there for your plants, it normally will hurt your fish. So it's more like a symbiotic, closed, recirculating system.
Okay, so to break it down, right, for listeners, because this may be their first time, and like a lot of times you may hear rappers in the song talking about hydroponic, like hydroponic, like that's basically when it's grown in water, right? But when you start adding other life forms like fish or shrimp, or you know what I'm saying, catfish, lobsters, and stuff like that, because you can even, that's aquaponics, right? When you're adding in the layers of
Animal
sea life,
aspect.
yeah.
Mm,
When you add in, okay, the livestock aspect,
correct,
okay.
correct. So yeah, you're just using the waste from the fish or waste from the animals to pump back to be recirculated to the plants, and the plants clean the water for the fish, and the fish provide nutrients for the plants.
And I know last time we talked about, a couple episodes ago, we talked about like the different outputs of like cannabis, right? So some things are better for it to be ingested, right? And the things that you want to ingest, that you want to eat or maybe put on your skin, someone may choose to grow hydroponically, right? Like you, Antoine, because you, excuse me, you're more focused on like the potency of the individual plant itself. But someone who may be trying to harvest for biofuel or for a plastic replacement or something, they might want to use the traditional method of the soil, right, growing outside, because they're more focused on the biomass, right, the actual fibers, like the bulkiness of the stock. So it wouldn't make sense to grow that in a hydroponic system, right, because it's almost so specialized, right? Like, you get what I'm saying? So it's kind of getting into that process step.
Yeah, so it really depends on the purpose that you're growing for. So if you're growing for the cannabinoids, you want to look for as a more hydroponic, so you can produce a more premium quality product. But now if you're growing for the fiber and textiles, you can, and then you gotta also get you a different genetic or strain, a cultivar of the hemp plant to be able to grow, and you can grow that in pretty much any field. And if you're going to do that, you know, like a lot of folks, especially when hemp serve as such a good remediation, if you're going to be doing that, you know, you can find a lot that may be unusable currently now. So I'll just use the example because a couple of my folks out in Florida ended up doing this for a remediation project. The city had some lot that was pretty much the soil wasn't good enough to build on, and no developers wanted to buy it, because if they wanted to build on it, they were going to have to fix the land. So the city was allowing hemp to be grown on it for the purpose of the textiles, and with them growing hemp on it, remove the toxins out of the soil to make it more palatable so it can be built and developed. And that created tax dollars for the state. You know, the city, once they finally sold it, the developers didn't have to deal with the headache of trying to make sure that the soil was in proper condition for them to build. As well, they was able to use the textiles for other stuff because it wasn't being ingested. So they was able to use it for building material, fiber, the strands, and different things like that. So it really depends on the purpose that you're using it for, and when you can kind of usher your grow methodology to be able to serve your purpose. So, and that's why I love this hemp plant so much. It's so versatile. You know, it's not a one plug fit all. It's so much different stuff that we can do with it and they can do for us. And it just depends on our purpose for it and how we tend to use it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I say so. It feels like this episode has flown by, because we had so much news, and this topic, it can really get as broad or as deep as you want to go with it. But again, just a reminder, like, to kind of recap and wrap us up. Today we talked about vertical integration, but really when you start looking at all of the different steps inside of vertical integration, every step has a million possibilities into it, right? So can one of you guys just kind of run back what is the vertical integration process, or what is the supply chain process?
So it's seed to customer, right? So you sowing the seed, putting it in the ground, you cultivating it. Everything is done in-house, and then you ship out your product. You know, so it's everything is done in-house.
And then, so Antoine, when we think about that first step in that process, right? So I guess what are the steps? Let's break it down one more time for the people in the back. So the first step is cultivation, right? That's the farmers. The
That's
second
correct.
step is like so the farmers will harvest, and then we move into post harvest, right? And then post harvest we go to
We go to transportation and then to processing.
Okay.
So cultivation is going to pretty much be the intermediate to every step of this way. So you have cultivation, transportation to processing. Processing, it can be processed different ways. I'd like for us to pick back up on that next week because we really need some innovation and some discussion around that. And then you get secure transportation again to the dispensaries once the end products are made, and then from the dispensary it goes straight to the consumers. Well, no, I take that back. I missed a very important step. From processing, it gets transported to the state lab testing because everything needs to be tested before it hit our shelves. And then it gets transported again to the dispensaries, and then it goes to the customers. Don't buy it if it ain't been tested, people.
Oh, it's a whole nother conversation. So luckily next week we're gonna have a glimpse into the future. But what are some things that you would like listeners to carry with them from this week to next week's episode? Like why does understanding vertical integration matter for the average Alabamian who may not even be aware that this process is happening?
So I would say that, you know what I'm saying, they need to take away that they need to know their plan. They need to know what they're gonna do, what they're gonna grow, because that depends on how they're gonna grow it, what method they're gonna grow it, how they're gonna process it. You know, so if you know your true plan and know your end goal, you'll be able to maneuver through the system to be able to get what you need out of it. So know what you're doing, know your processes, know everything that you can do with the plant, so you can get the most out of the plant.
And that's super good advice. That's super good advice for like farmers, especially. Go ahead, Antoine.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and second that and piggyback off of that. The most important thing is to be in the knowing, you know, especially with the medicine that we getting here in Alabama that we're trying to produce. You need to know your farmer. You need to know your grower. You need to know who is giving you this medicine. You need to know them personally, ethically, if I said that right, because a lot of these companies move unethical, as well as they tracking their history and what they truly do for the community. Because there'll be a lot of entities out here that'll say that they're here for Alabama, they want to do X, Y, and Z, but they here to they leeches, they bloodsuckers, they gonna get you and they gonna go. Make sure you focus on the people here in Alabama, support the folks here in Alabama, that we can recirculate everything here in Alabama and trust Alabama. That's pretty much it that I gotta say, and just continue to stay involved in the process. Follow it. Go to these commission meetings. It's public. Anybody can go and just to simply be able to connect. These people are real people. They can be touched. You just got to show up.
Shay. So, with that, are there any shameless plugs? Are there any upcoming events that people should be aware of before the next week? Even though Friday, October 20th is Candle the Farm Plug's birthday, so that's just a shameless plug. If y'all want to cash app her at $Candle KANDEAUX, we'll take all that love.
You sound like that meme. My birthday tomorrow. My birthday tomorrow. Everybody.
My birthday is tomorrow. My birthday is tomorrow. But what shameless plugs y'all got? What are some upcoming events that people should know about?
And the shameless plug is I'm plugging the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission. Go to amcc.al.gov, I believe. Go to the meeting tab just to stay in tune and make sure y'all coming out to these meetings or at least being on the Zoom call to watch it live. Each meeting is streamed live on the Alabama Legislative website, and this is them actually being transparent that the public everybody can get it, and it's also being recorded as well. So that's my shameless plug. I'm plugging the commission so we can bring more attention to them.
And also, Antoine, where can people find you? Like, what's your Instagram? What's your Facebook and stuff? Because sometimes people may not want to be directly in the room. They want to hear it translated. They want to hear the Cliff Notes version. And I know that every time you go up in there, you do a nice recap on your stories, letting people know what they need to be paying attention to. So how can people connect with you?
Yeah, well, you can find me on Instagram at KingTwan84, KingTwon84, and you can find me on LinkedIn at Antoine Mordican. And I'm very active on both of them, but LinkedIn is where I do a lot of my cannabis talking. That's where a lot of the cannabis industry is at, on LinkedIn.
That's a real plug right there. Okay, Dr. Higgins, what about you? Are there any upcoming events at 595 Grady Street that people should know about?
So yeah, so with the PWAC conference that we're having at the university, so we are kicking off the conference on that Sunday at the urban site. We'll have a wine tasting from a local winery, a female winery lady in the area. So 595 Grady Street, Sunday, October 29th, from 5 to 7. We will be out there, right? So come check us out.
Okay, it's giving charcuterie. Okay, we see y'all. That's what's up. And as always, if you all want to connect and learn more about what we've got going on at the CISC, you can go straight to CISC1881.org, or you can follow us on Instagram at CISC1881, or definitely check out our YouTube page at CISC1881. And I would be remiss if I did not start to get the people prepared for Canna KwanzaaCon, which will be going live again this year in December, where we celebrate the intersections of cannabis as the plant of our people and a plant of the future, and Black culture in general. So the first of its kind, Canna KwanzaaCon, is back for the 3rd year in a row. And so definitely stay tuned on all of those aforementioned platforms to stay in the loop. And with that, do we have a song for the week?
We do not. we short this week.
The way you just no. We don't. Yeah, we is done.
That's